endlessly searching for an original sin.
I'm doing okay. Also, I want to give a big thanks, which I'll do during the Twitch part of the stream. There are 2 people that donated yesterday, and I'd like to thank them. Like I said, I'll do it during the Patreon stream, or the Twitch stream. Now to figure out which fucking one we left off with. This one. Yeah. Monday morning rolled around, and after a brief call to the academy, Yuji headed to the neighborhood clinic. As was usual for a Monday, the waiting room was full of children and senior citizens. It was some time before Yuji's name was called. When they finally showed him in, he told the doctor about his symptoms, including the hallucinations. However, they were unable to find anything physically wrong with him, and thus determined that it was likely psychosomatic. To placate him, they prescribed a week's worth of low-dose sleeping pills and some vitamins. Yuji doubted this would be particularly helpful, but nonetheless he was relieved to know that he hadn't contracted some strange new illness. After he left the clinic, he was shot a quick text to his sister. Hold on. Sorry, my audio thing isn't working, which is weird. There we go. So she could stop worrying. Feeling better, Yuji headed to the station and caught a train to school. He had just arrived and was about to open the classroom door when the bell rang, signaling the end of first period. Chemistry was next, and today they were scheduled to perform an experiment, which meant going down to the basement lab. That was about the last place Yuji wanted to go, but he didn't have a choice in the matter. His spirit dampened, he dropped his book bag off in the classroom, then headed down the stairs.
Yuji, hayo!
Just as he arrived on the basement floor, Makoto called out to him. He peered curiously at Yuji, smiling brightly as always.
病院行ってきたんだって。朝神谷が言ってたけど。
あ
あ。どうだった？結果とか。
少し疲れが出てるんじゃないかって。
そっか。まあそうだよな。疲れるよな。学校出てきたばっかだし。ゆっくり慣れてけばいいって言いたいとこだけど、もうすぐ中間試験だぜ。
Makoto smirked, a fierce light in his eyes, and Yuji realized that he was right. He'd been so busy worrying about other things, he'd completely forgotten that midterms were right around the corner.
守備はどうよ？万全？
まさか。
あ、本当？俺もだいたい前日に一夜漬けで暗記コース。それでどこまで覚えられるかの真剣勝負って感じ。
一夜漬けって眠くならないか？
眠い眠い。ブラックコーヒーとか飲んでみるけどさ、全然ダメ。まあ平均点取れればいいかなとか思うしさ。学生の本分は遊びっしょ。
That's why. He snickered mischievously.
幼児ってあんまり遊ばんの？どっか出かけたりとか。
そんなには。
行きたいとことかないの？
One place immediately came to mind.
水族館。
そこの好きだっけ？
そうだな。家でも飼ってるよ。
お、マジで？俺も魚好き。スイスイ泳いでるとこ見ると癒されるよな。食ってもうまいし。試験終わったらさ、回転寿司行きてえな。
They seemed to be getting off topic. Classic Makoto, Yuji felt himself smile. As they ambled down the corridor, The chemistry lab came into view. When he caught sight of it, Makoto's expression changed.
あ、そういえばさ、なんか変な噂聞いたんだけどさ、知ってる？科学室の。
The chemistry lab? Yuji felt his heart skip a beat. Somehow he managed to maintain an air of calm.
科学室
C 組のイナだって知ってる？うちのクラスに彼女がいてさ、それでよくこっちに来るんだけど、あいつがさ、昨日の放課後、科学室の掃除中にいきなり騒ぎ出したらしくてさ、内臓みたいなものが落ちてるって。
Hey, welcome to the stream.
んで、みんなで確かめてみたけど、そんなもんどこにもなかったんだって。でもそいつだけは、ここにあるだろって床を指さしてんだってさ。
Makoto recounted the story like it was a hilarious antidote, but his audience had stopped listening halfway through. Guts on the floor of the chemistry lab? Yesterday's incident immediately came to mind, though he wished he could forget it. While he had been in the act, his fingers had touched something slimy, soft, and warm. He wanted to believe it was two events weren't connected, and yet...
どうした？
Let me know if you guys hear the echo of the thing from my neck thing. Makoto patted him lightly on the shoulder, bringing him back to reality.
いや、なんでもない。
I'm doing okay.
ぼーっとしてると怪我するぞ。
So I'm a little sore. His tone was teasing, but then the smile vanished from his face. He was staring at Yuji, or no, at something behind him. Curiously, Yuji turned to find Tetsuo walking along, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Alright, guys. Which one do you want to take? Do you want red or blue? Remember, you can choose red or blue. Passion or logic? Make your choice. So we have one for blue. Oh, can I wonder, hold on, can I make a poll here? I don't think I can, but let me check. Ban, shadow ban. You can shadow ban people? Huh. Kick a copy, kick a user, list of mods, remove mod. Nope, you can't. Okay. How do I make this go away? How do I make this vanish? There. Blue. So we have two for blue. What's this thingy? Send a message. Oh, I can! Oh, only premium users. Gay! Gay. I can't do it. I'm not buying premium. Bleh. Bleh. So we have two for blue. So we're going to go with blue. Since most... Wrong button.
俺、あいつ苦手だわ。
Makoto muttered, his eyes still following Tetsuo's back.
なんかさ、機械みたいだよな。何考えてるのか全然わかんねえ。同じ年なんて思えねえもん。でも、結構いろいろやってるって聞いたことあるぜ。
いろいろ
Before he knew it, he was asking for details.
そう。怪しげな店から出てくるとこ見たってやつとかいるし、あと、年ごまかして働いてるとかさ。沖永も相当やばいけど、一応あいつは親の正体とか知れてる分、まだマシだよな。白沼ってさ、本当にわけわかんねえもん。謎。全部謎だらけ。
Evidently, Yuji wasn't the only one who felt that way about Tetsuo. It made sense. Lack of understanding breeds fear.
なのにさ、白沼ってなぜかモテるんだよな。今も特会引っかえらしいし。
何よ。
You gossip like a girl, dude.
女。
そんな風には見えないけど。
The word slipped out, and before he knew it, he'd inadvertently encouraged Makoto to continue.
だよな。なんか知らねえけど、女どもはさ、あのわけわかんなさがミステリアスでいいとか言うんだぜ。おかしいだろ？意味わかんねえよ。俺が女だったら絶対無理。なんで女ってああいうの好きなんだろうな。おまけに背も高いし、頭もいいし。あ、うん。今のはちょっと切なくなった。
By the end of his rant, he was hanging his head like a scolded puppy. Meanwhile, Yuji was more puzzled about something else Makoto had said. Tetsuo went on dates with girls? He couldn't picture it. The idea was bizarre.
まあ、何に
You
せ
call
よ
him gay?
お友達にはなりたくねえな。どんな裏があるかわかんねえし。
そうだな。
You just hear Tetsuo in the background. I can hear you, fuckers. Students' voices echoed off the damp walls and floor. They were nearly at the chemistry lab. Tetsuo was nowhere to be seen. Had he already gone inside?
これから実験か。好きだし楽しいけどめんどくせえ。
No, seriously, Makoto seems like the type that when he gossips, he's really fucking loud about it. Makoto grumbled, fingers laced behind his head as he walked into the chemistry lab. Yuji stopped at the threshold, reluctant to enter. Images of the incident flickered through his mind. Really quick, by the way, if you're a patron, you're a Subscribe Star member, or an OnlyFans member, well, you each have a poll up right now you should all go and vote for. You have until the middle of next week. I have decided to hold Bunny back from working until you guys decide. In fact, I'm going to go check the votes right now because I'm evil. Let me see. Well, now that Eldritch Abomination that takes care of the Twitch channel is, evil. I'm just a cute little unicorn. Really? Really? Really, 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 really? Really? That's a surprise. I didn't think Trinity would be winning over on Patreon. I thought you'd all go on the redhead, or the, what color is that? Pink. Pink hair. I am not colorblind. Unicorns are not colorblind. Wow, Trinity's winning on... Wow! Well, I'm glad I stopped her from working. We had a big plan for Sachi. And no one's voted on OnlyFans because it's OnlyFans. Yeah, Trinity is. I thought you guys legit didn't like her. I'm surprised by that. I think if she gets made, we'll ask the Eldritch Abomination if she can do like the friendlier games. Images in the incident flickered through his mind. He remembered how he felt in the moment and Tetsuo's cold stare. He squeezed his eyes shut to block it all out. Then, after a moment, he walked into the room.
今日は実験をするぞ。いつも通り名簿順に5、6人の班に分かれて。
By the way, if you guys like these streams, I might start doing 2 every other week. One on Tuesday and then one on Sunday. But it is up to you guys. I'm going to be taking a small break from Twitch streaming after tonight because I need a bit of a break to catch up on some other work. And by work, I mean, stuff. Kamiya called out over the din of chattering students. The word's alphabetical order sent Yuji's mood into a tailspin. He knew he'd end up in the same group as Tetsuo. The other groups, once formed, talked excitedly amongst themselves, but Yuji's group was decidedly quiet. The atmosphere was more than a little awkward. Probably because Tetsuo was there. Determined to ignore Tetsuo as much as possible, Yuji kept his gaze focused on the lab table. Today, they would be conducting a flame test. As such, each table was stocked with matches, evaporating dishes, methanol, sodium chloride, I can read, potassium chloride, and so
そ
on.
れじゃあ実験を始めるぞ。火を使うからみんな細心の注意を払うように。
So I'm curious, did anyone else in high school, did anyone else's, not their class, but did anyone else ever have, like, in the science lab, somebody explode the entire lab? Because that actually happened at my school, which was hysterical. After splitting the school into the 8 groups, Kamiya went over the instructions and safety procedures, and the experiment began. The steps were simple. Pour some reagent into the evaporating dish, and then light it with a match. Vari-colored flames went up around the room, causing a few students to exclaim in delight. Yuji readied his pen and notebook. They were supposed to note their observations, and stared at his group's flame. Never had an explosion in the lab. I just walked around with a python those some days. I mean, that is baller. But before he knew it, thoughts flooded his mind like static, and the world around him went dim. I heard he totally lost his shit yesterday while cleaning the chemistry lab after school. Out of nowhere, he started screaming about someone's guts on the floor. Someone's guts on the floor? Suddenly, Yuji lost his balance. His arm jerked, and his hand bumped against the evaporating dish. The dish... Okay. The dish tilted, brushing the flame across the back of his hand. Yuji quickly yanked his arm back, but it was too late. He grimaced in pain. His group members turned to him in alarm. Neighboring groups were peering curiously in their direction, as well as Kamiya quickly noticed and ran over. But before he could arrive, someone else grabbed Yuji's arm and thrust his burned hand under the table faucet. That's actually the smart thing to do. He flinched at first, but the cool water quickly eased the sting of the burn. But just as he heaved a sigh of relief, a question arose at the forefront of his mind. Who had grabbed him? He turned to look. Dude, did ya want him to let you burn? It was Tetsuo. Memories rose with crystal clarity. The chemistry lab, dark and hazy, heavy breathing, a feverish heat. Those humiliating words. A little pent up. Dang it. I'm fine. Oh, there we go. Yuji growled, yanking his arm away. Tetsuo silently released his grip, but then turned the faucet off. The whole room went silent. Everyone was staring at them.
Sakiyama, これ当てて。
Kamiya handed him a damp washcloth, and as instructed, he gently laid it over the burn.
早く保健室へ行きなさい。白沼、ついてってやれ。
一人で大丈夫です。
Yuji spoke up loudly, interrupting Kamiya before turning and heading for the door.
連れて行きます。
Yuji looked back in surprise to find that Tetsuo was following him. He turned and stormed out of the chemistry lab. Willing his legs to move as fast as they could go, he climbed the stairs to the first floor. Why was Tetsuo coming with him? Why? He reached the top stair and sat down the hallway. The sound of footsteps trailing behind him hastened his pace.
待てよ。
Yuji flinched as Tetsuo grabbed his shoulder from behind. He felt the impulse to bolt, but Tetsuo shoved him against the wall. Show it to us, yes! Here it comes! Tetsuo's arms boxed him in. Yuji stared at him, unable to believe this was happening. Tetsuo was too close. Suffocatingly close.
何
Before he could stop himself, the words left his lips in a hoarse whisper. But Tetsuo stared back at him without saying anything. They were still in the middle of class, and the halls were as silent as the grave. Unable to endure the tension a moment longer, Yuji attempted to shove Tetsuo away with his uninjured hand. But Tetsuo grabbed Yuji's arm, stopping him. Just then, Yuji felt something slippery and wet. Confused, he looked down at his arm. Blood? There was a scarlet smear on his skin. What the hell? Then he noticed something else. Tetsuo's hand was stained with blood, too. Yuji whipped his head up to look at Tetsuo. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even blink. Meanwhile, Tetsuo showed no surprise. Instead, he rubbed his fingers together, as if to test the blood's consistency. He could see it? He could see the blood? Yuji recalled the bright red bathtub. He convinced himself that it was a hallucination, bloody hands and all. But this time was different. Tetsuo could see the blood on his fingers. Yuji recalled the rumor Makoto had conveyed, the one where the student had seen someone's guts on the floor of the lab. Could other people see these things too? Maybe they weren't hallucinations after all? Hi, this is Seiya no Uta calling, saying, you stole my shit. If you guys haven't seen that Let's Play, it is really good. He stared blankly at the blood-smeared arm. How much of this was real? Was there any way to know? Yuji touched the blood with trembling fingers. He could feel it, warm and wet, right there on his arm, which meant that it was real. In that case, he must have contracted something after all. There was no way fatigue could cause symptoms like this. Assuming, of course, that it was real. All of a sudden, he felt the urge to vomit rising in the back of his throat. Summoning all his strength, he shoved Tetsuo away and took off running down the hall. Bolting straight into the boys' bathroom, he darted into the stall and shut the door. Tentacles, mystery meat, and the garish colors. Oh my! Back against the wall, he shut his eyes and fought against the nausea. Suddenly, it vanished. And instead, he felt the stabbing pain in his gut. The pain shifted gradually into a feeling of discomfort, like something was growing inside of him. If he's about to get horny, I need to ask you guys, is this how it feels when you men get horny? I'm just curious. It's not like that for us. You know, I'm just wondering. It's kind of weird. Cold sweat broke out onto his forehead. He tried to loosen his uniform, but his hands were numb. Someone give this motherfucker some Zoloft or something to calm him down. The pressure began to descend, seeking an exit. Hand shaking, Yuji gripped his uniform and tightened his gut. He was trying to fight it, but to no avail. The moment he realized it was hopeless, the tension broke, and the floodgates opened. He felt something slide out of him. Did he just shit his pants? A breath forced its way past his lips. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. His body was frozen, as if entombed in ice. The discomfort and pain in his gut were subsiding, but his heart was full of despair. I am trying so hard not to... I am a mature adult. Oh, no. Oh, no, he's Christian. I'll butt shit my pants. Thank you, Denchi. I thought they were going for the horny thing again. Shifting his body, he felt a weight in his soiled briefs. Fighting the surge of disgust, Yuji forced his stiff hands to lower his slacks and underwear. He heard something hit the floor with a Thanks for describing it, game, with a soft plop. Whatever it was, he didn't want to see it. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Squeezing his eyes shut, he took a deep breath. Then, once again, he prepared himself, and he slowly opened them again. That's terrible, Shaolin. His gaze drifted down to his feet. There was a bright red puddle had formed on the tile, and something was floating in it. It was dark red and lumpy, with veiny lines across its surface. As Yuji stared at it, it twitched. On closer inspection, it seemed to be pulsing, almost like a little heart. This got weird. A chill shot down his spine. As he shuddered, the tip of his toe slipped into the puddle. He quickly yanked his foot back, afraid that the blood might start creeping up his leg. I heard he totally lost his shit yesterday while cleaning the chemistry lab after school. Out of nowhere, he started screaming about someone's guts on the floor. Overcome with fear and confusion, Yuji yanked up his damp underwear, put his slacks back on, and left the restroom. He had no destination in mind. He just needed to walk for a while. Oh, I'm sure that was comfortable. What was that thing? Oh, you didn't even clean it. You're terrible. It had looked like an organ of some kind, and it had been moving. Had that thing been inside his body? No. No way. Was it real? Was he dreaming? Or was he just losing his mind? He could hear the world he knew falling to pieces around him. After speaking briefly with Kamiya, Yuji went home sick that day. He was out of the building before the bell rang for third period. Organs don't typically move on their own, not even a heart. This is Animu. Sometime later, a lone figure stepped casually into the boys' bathroom. He stopped in front of one of the stalls, his long blonde hair bouncing off his garish green shirt. Sakiyama Yuji had been here. Zenya had seen everything, starting from his argument with the other student in the hall. The memory of that little scene put a smile on his face. Attending class wasn't really Zenya's thing. Instead, he would often go for walks around the building, sometimes even off campus. Today had been another day of peaceful silence in the halls. That is, until he heard the sound of an argument. Careful to stay out of sight, he watched the two students bicker. One of them had been Yuji, but the other he hadn't recognized. Granted, he didn't recognize most people. All of a sudden, Yuji had shoved the other guy away and made a mad dash down the hall. The guy had stood there for a moment, then walked off. So Zenya had tailed Yuji all the way to the boys' bathroom. Once inside, he stayed perfectly still and silent, listening to the sound of agony emanating from the closed stall. Yuji had been breathing so hard it was almost sad. Zenyad had to fight to keep from laughing. Then, as his shoulders shook with mirth, he smelled something. Something sweet and soft and poisonous. Something that had made him swoon. He slipped out of the bathroom, heart pounding with excitement. And now, after savoring the anticipation for a while, he'd returned.
どうかな? どうなってるのかな?
Humming merrily to himself, Zenya pressed a thin hand to the door of the stall. It didn't take long for him to find what he was looking for.
やっぱりあった。見つけた。
Beaming innocently from ear to ear, Zenya squatted on his spindly legs. There was a pool of blood on the floor, and a strange-looking lump was floating in it.
これこれ。やっぱりね。
Don't you fucking dare! He whispered giddily to himself. Then, without a moment's hesitation, he reached down, grabbed the lump between his thumb and forefingers, staining his pale fingers with blood. Bad, Xenia, bad. For God's sake, Xenia. He lifted the throbbing lump to face height, then slowly extended his pink tongue. He pretended to lick it, then shook his head and laughed at his own joke.
いいな。ほんと、いいな。
Dropping the lump to the floor, he then began to laugh, rocking back and forth on his heels.
いいな。あったかい。産みたては、あったかいね。
This guy's weird. Oh, what fun. What fun he was having.
きっとさ、こんな風にうずくまってたんだろうな。ここで。
Squatting on his heels and trembling. The image made him laugh even harder. But then, without warning, Xenia froze. His left eye twitched.
でもね、すっごくさ、生意気だよね。
Muttering to himself, he rose to his feet, staring down at the lump with one unfocused eye. He lifted his foot.
あったかいとか、生意気だよね。
And brought it down on the lump of flesh. Xenia stomped the shapeless lump again and again. The pool of blood spread even wider.
ふざけんなよ。死ねよ。ありえねえんだよ。死ね。死ね。
He only stopped once there was nothing left but a thick brownish paste.
本当に生意気だよね。あいつも生意気。
That guy. That nobody arguing with Yuji in the hall. What was someone like him doing with Yuji? He was nothing. He didn't even have a scent. He was just a stupid human. Dark emotions boiled in Xenia's chest. Gritting his teeth, he curled his lips into a snarl. Then, with a slow, unsteady stride, he left the stall and disappeared from sight. Xenia's a little fucking crazy. Yuji collapsed into bed the moment he got home. He was exhausted, both physically and mentally, and drowsiness quickly crept over him. But every time he closed his eyes, that awful image rose in his mind. That bloody lump laying on the floor of the toilet stall. In the end, the nightmarish scenes haunted him until morning. A little crazy. A little. The next day, bone-tired, Yuji piloted his lethargic body to school. There, he spent the whole morning thinking about one thing. Tetsuo. He thought back to the incident in the hall and compared it to the time Tetsuo touched his neck. Could Tetsuo really see the blood? If so, then Yuji had been bleeding. But in that case, why had Tetsuo been so calm about it? He's got a blood fetish? God, I hope not. He'd acted like it was totally ordinary, when a normal person would have freaked out or been confused or something else. That said, Yuji had a feeling Tetsuo's normal was a little different than most people. As he listened with half an ear to the teacher's lecture, Yuji shifted his gaze towards the windows. He could see Tetsuo looking down at his textbook. Tetsuo was wearing glasses, as he always did during class. For a moment, Yuji contemplating asking Tetsuo if he had seen the blood. The blood. Come to think of it, had he left the bathroom in such a panic yesterday that he'd forgotten to clean up his mess? He was concerned someone might have seen it after he left, although he hadn't heard anyone talking about it. Unfortunately, this made him even less certain how much of it had been real. The bell rang, signaling the end of class, and the classroom roared to life. His train of thought had derailed. Yuji let out a long sigh. He had no desire to do anything as he collapsed back into his seat. He spotted Makoto headed his way.
幼児、昨日大丈夫だったか実験の時。
Makoto put a hand on Yuji's desk and leaned close, a concerned expression on his face.
ああ、大丈夫。
Yuji put his hand on the desk for Makoto to see. All that remained of his burn was a faint pink mark. The timely first aid had prevented any significant scarring.
そっか。よかった。
Makoto smiled, relieved.
ぼーっとしてたのか？あんな簡単な実験でやけどするなんてさ。
ちょっと考え事をしてた。
実験中は集中しないと危ないぜ。つかさ。
Makoto's gaze flickered over to the windows.
白沼が保健室に連れてったんだろ？どうだった？
何が？
Yuji struggled to keep his voice level.
いや、だってなんか、あいつ怖くね？なんとなく、どうだったのかなーって。
別に
I
特
didn't
に
mean
は
to skip it. Sorry. Yuji stood up from his seat. This was the last conversation he wanted to be having right now. Makoto looked slightly worried. He could probably tell that something was
トイ
wrong.
レ？
ああ
Yuji answered curtly and walked off without making eye contact. He had no real destination in mind. He just wanted to get away from any talk of Tetsuo. As he left the classroom, he realized he was angry. But why? It wasn't what Makoto had said about Tetsuo. If anything, he agreed with Makoto's opinion on the guy. But for some reason, he didn't want to hear it from anyone else. Maybe because he was already agonizing over Tetsuo enough. And now, his inability to explain his frustration was making him even more frustrated. Hoping to calm himself, Yuji spent some time wandering the sunlit halls. There we go. Morning classes ended with the ringing of the lunch bell. Do you guys want to keep going or do you want to call it here? It's up to you guys. Just in case, though. Let's see. Nope, wrong button. This does feel like a decent stopping point. Call it. Alrighty. So we're gonna get the next game ready. Can I?